It's Ada from LUCIDPIXUL, and welcome back. Back in 2015, I started what I like to call my dream job, where I started my own private online mentorship where I got a chance to follow in the footsteps and the influence of many of the masters of past, like Leonardo da Vinci and Rembrandt, etc., and teach privately, one-on-one, where it could just be me and my student, where I could get to know my student on a personal level, develop a personal relationship with them, instead of dealing with a lot of the stresses and a lot of the challenges that come with teaching large groups of artists, when every single person, every single artist in that classroom all have unique skills, unique strengths, and deserve to have time alone with a professional. And needless to say, that dream job persists to this day, not only teaching artists from every single corner of the planet, literally, but become friends with them, develop relationships with them, that they're not just passing students that come and go, ships passing in the night. No, these are people that I continue to speak to this day, and I have a meaningful relationship with. And through that process, I have made many discoveries, not only about myself, but about artists in general. Because when you had the chance to work with and teach and get to know and problem solve and have personal private conversations with thousands of students, you start to notice certain patterns. You start to notice certain personalities. And furthermore, you start to see a correlation between certain types of thoughts, certain types of realities and experiences in people's lives, and how that can, and very often does, have a very direct impact on their self-esteem, their productivity, or lack thereof, and their general attitude towards art and their career. And I want to share some of these with you because I think these are far more common than you might expect. And I want to start with who you surround yourself with. More often than not, these are family members, these are parents, these are loved ones. Sometimes it's our partner in life. And one of the things that I've come to note, not from being a professional counselor or psychologist, I don't possess any diplomas in psychology or anything like that. I'm just a person who has a relationship with students. And one of the things you start to notice is very often, and I can put myself into this category as well, when you have a family member who doesn't encourage, who does not support your choices, it doesn't necessarily stop you from pursuing an artistic career, but it definitely fills you with doubt. And to be completely honest with you, that can have positive or negative impacts on an artist's growth, at least in terms of productivity. But it always has a negative impact on a person's attitude and self-esteem when it comes to the very act of pursuing an artistic career, the very act of investing and or, quote, wasting any time training oneself artistically when they could be doing more normal jobs. And I say that with great discomfort because I would love somebody to sit down with a list of jobs and point to me which ones are normal and which ones aren't. And I'd like to ask people at different eras, different centuries, what their attitudes are towards different job types. What do I mean by this? Well, a lot of my students don't only come from North America and come from Canada. I can say with confidence that the large majority of my students are not North American, although there are a lot of North Americans. Very few Canadians, interestingly. That might have something to do with our affordable cost of education. But most of my students come from European countries and Asian countries as well. And one of the things that is very common, and I'm sure if you're from these countries, you can attest to what I'm saying, the family dynamic is much tighter, meaning that children, the offspring, for lack of a better term, later on in life, once they become professionals and breadwinners, it is expected for them to start supporting their older family. And if you have that kind of weight of family expectations, if people are looking at you with big eyes, hanging on your every word, then you become utterly self-conscious about the decisions that you make with your career. And some people quite simply buckle under that weight, disappointing the people that they love, making decisions, putting other people at risk is a devastating thought. The worst thing in the world that they could possibly do is take a risk with somebody else's well-being. And I think that's a very commendable quality to have. Except it can also be very tragic that you, this person with this incredible passion and desire and need to express yourself artistically, are denying the world your talent, your compassion, your passion, your creative contribution to this world due to the fear of disappointing others. I personally find that sad. If you flip the coin and you paint exactly that same family dynamic, but instead of the person at the receiving end of this family pressure or these loved ones, this relationship pressure that you're dealing with, instead of that person being overwhelmed by this pressure and buckling under it and pursuing something a little bit more practical, something a little bit more, quote, stable, they instead double down and decide to go all in with it. In cases like that, and I just finished with a student recently who was a very, very good example of this. A woman who comes from a traditional Chinese background, intensely talented, but at the same time intensely burdened by the pressure from her family to, well, do something less idealistic, less of a romantic life's pursuit, and didn't have that kind of pressure, didn't have that kind of support from her family to pursue it. In fact, more often than not, judged and insulted for that pursuit. How did she handle it? How does she handle it? With incredible integrity and strength, but that doesn't come without the cost of great internal turmoil and great internal struggle, where she's fighting this incredible sense of self-doubt and judgment from the people who she wishes she could get support from. What did that cause her? What has that led to as a result artistically? Well, I think that despite the struggle and despite the emotional weight that has come with this difficult decision, this difficult stance that she's had to take, this very brave stance, I might add, it has also led to great talent because she had to prove herself. Heck, if I'm going to make this decision and if I'm going to do so in spite of your protest to me pursuing something like this, I have to get so incredibly good and succeed so incredibly well that I prove you wrong and I prove myself right. So, yeah, I do believe that despite the struggle that this has brought her, she has that fighter spirit, and she has fought through it to become something great. Unfortunately, however, what upsets me as a friend of hers now, somebody who knows her and somebody who's had many conversations with her, that that's come at a very heavy emotional burden to her, and the stress and the emotional impact on her as a result of it has been quite heavy. And we've had many emotional conversations about that stuff. But I think she serves as a very good example of many of these artists that you come across that are incredibly successful, that are incredibly talented. And when you end up hearing their life story, you realize that they did so in spite of incredible pressure, incredible doubt, incredible being insulted, being ashamed, being judged for even pursuing something like that in the first place. And it puts me as a teacher, as somebody who's there to offer advice and feedback, it puts me in a bit of a tricky situation because there's two sides to this coin. One is the familial side. One is the emotional family pressure, but the other side is the talent. And sometimes great talent comes from great difficulty. And sometimes the greatest things in our life do come from having to overcome these incredible challenges. I've expressed many of the personal and artistic and career challenges that I've faced in my life. And I can say with great confidence that although they really, really sucked, and I still have the scars today to show for my experiences, would I rewind the clock and try to avoid going through that experience again? I don't think anybody in the right mind would ever want to voluntarily experience what I've experienced in my life, personally or career-wise. But it was a catalyst for me to discover who I truly was. It was a lesson for me. All of these difficulties I've lived with, physical, social, personal, professional, creative, all of these challenges I've dealt with, I've had to live through, have led to very positive adaptations in myself that I feel were integral in my artistic growth and to whom I am today. The very fact that I'm sitting here as a teacher and as a YouTuber, and the fact that I'm living this reality right now and having this conversation with you right now is a testament not only to my academics and my perseverance, it's also a testament to the lessons that I have learned through the challenges that I've faced. If I was to offer a piece of advice, non-professional advice, to these dear friends of mine who come from these weighty family dynamics or social dynamics that have filled you with doubt about your artistic pursuits, the first thing I might say, if I could offer you a balanced perspective, is challenge isn't always bad. Difficulty isn't always a bad thing. Pain isn't always a bad thing. Pain is a teacher. Pain is a mirror towards yourself, and it helps to teach you the truth about who you are when you take all of those fancy trappings away. The difficulties of life is like walking into a ring and getting into a fight. Up until that point where you get punched in the face, as Mike Tyson would say, you don't truly know who you are. And sometimes, even though people aren't intentionally trying to help you by insulting you, by putting you down, by filling you with doubt, by questioning everything that you do, by reminding you that you suck ass for whatever reason, because some of these parents can be cruel pieces of shit. But what they're doing is they're punching you in the face with their attitudes. They're punching you in the face with their beliefs. They're punching you in the face with their social paranoia, their personal paranoia. And when you need to weather that and you persevere through that, you realize, hey, I can handle a punch. In fact, I didn't only handle a punch. I have developed an incredibly commendable artistic talent in spite of that. In fact, it very likely might be because of that challenge, because you weren't just drawing for yourself, you were drawing to prove something to others. You were drawing to say, hey, I don't give a shit what you think. I can succeed with or without your permission. I think the turning point, and I think it becomes unhealthy once you do start to find some kind of success. Once you have completed that education, once you have found yourself a good job, a stable job, perhaps. Although, I don't care where you come from. Stability is a bit of a myth. I don't think there's any perfectly stable career. I know people who work in business and communications and accountancy and programming that lose their jobs all the time. So art is not the only job that has instability associated with it. But once you've found that stability, once you've achieved that thing, and you are now officially a professional, you are somebody who's been paid for artwork, I think then's the time you need to step back. And the earlier you do this, the better. You need to step back and reevaluate your reality. You are no longer someone's dependent. You are no longer somebody's child. You are now standing on your own 2 feet. You're now a woman. You're now a man. You're now somebody who has weathered the storm of challenge. You have overcome your own laziness, your own ego, your own insecurities. And you're now standing on your own 2 feet. And I think what you need to do at that point is look down at your feet and realize that you're standing on the ground without being carried by anybody. And at that particular point, you need to start rewriting your own script about yourself. You need to start reevaluating who you are as a person, not through the lens of somebody else. Because once you do that, when you do that, if you can look into the eyes of the person who is insulting you, judging you, criticizing you, filling you with self-doubt, despite your success, you have to be able to ask yourself the question, to whose benefit is it that you're making me doubt the success that I already have? What value does it bring your life to make me doubt myself? Dad? Mom? You as a parent, as a father of 3 children, I can't fathom the idea of looking into my child's eyes and making them feel like anything less than great. I am failing at my job as a parent if I try to fill my own children's head with feelings of self-doubt. I think that's a very hurtful thing to do to somebody that depends on your opinion of them. And if that is the situation for you, and if you do have parents that can't look past their own shortcomings and their own personality flaws, you have to start creating opinions of yourself. You need to start getting to, as I have tattooed on my arm, know yourself. You need to start analyzing yourself through your own opinions, not through the opinions of others. And that's what brings me to the second part of this. Because I'm a member of a family. Who is a member of a family? Who is a member of a family? Who is a member of a family? I am one of thousands and thousands of ancestors that date back far further than I could possibly see. And it's crazy to think that who I am today, what I'm saying, what I'm thinking, what my beliefs are, how I look, all of these things that make up Adam today, right here, talking to you, is more than you can imagine a product of people I've never met, a product of people that have passed away hundreds or thousands of years ago, my ancestors. And that's where that whole family dynamic thing goes into overdrive, because if you're a member of a family, and if you've ever had a relationship with a parent or a sibling, you're well aware of the incredible influence that family has on you and your own internal dialogue. And then that internal dialogue becomes an external dialogue. And once you become parents, if you ever decide to have children of your own, or get into relationships with people and fall in love with people and live with people, then that programming that you've been given from your parents, good or bad, starts to come out in your dialogue towards people that you care for, good or bad. And sometimes it can take an entire lifetime to realize how much of your upbringing is coming through your own voice when you express your feelings towards other people. This is something I've had to contend with myself. This is something that everybody in my family and everybody close to me and all of my friends and my students have had to contend with. It's how many of these thoughts, how many of these feelings are truly my own, and how many of them are a manifestation of the things I've been taught growing up, the things I've been told growing up. And what that ends up doing is not only affecting the way that you treat other people, it also affects the way you treat yourself. And one of the things that I had to, now that I'm I'm in my late 40s, I'm only now starting to wrap my brain around these things, which is crazy to think, that there are so many things that I say towards others and towards myself over the years that when I stopped and thought about it for 2 seconds, I realized I never stopped to question why I said those things to myself in the first place, why I had certain perspectives of myself, why I had certain beliefs in myself. Where did they come from? I'm a product of something. I'm a product of someone. And very often I would have a negative or positive judgment about myself based off of something that I have no inherent experience in. And I'm realizing now, in my late 40s, that so many of my opinions and my beliefs about everything come from what I've been taught by others. If that's the case with you, and if you've found yourself raised in a world of judgment, of negativity, of pressure, of insults, if it gets particularly abusive, of any of these things, and it has an impact on how you speak to yourself, this is something you need to address. If it's something that you can address on your own by pulling out a journal and grabbing a nice pen and being very candid about your feelings in a book or something like that, or you speak to somebody, you speak to a professional, a counselor, a psychologist, and you start to unravel this quilt of belief that has brought you pain and doubt, you'd be absolutely amazed how much the quality of your life can start to change for the better. It's incredible how many things you probably believe about yourself right now, so many things you tell yourself on a daily basis that are purely fictional. They're purely fictional. You literally are absolutely anything you choose to be. You can be the greatest quality version of yourself that you could possibly imagine. But there's something getting in the way. There's some internal dialogue that's telling you that that's impossible, that that's not who you are, that that's not what you're capable of. And I'm telling you, you can. You literally can. I'm not talking about some cultish, belief system of, reaching to some spiritual height or some shit like that. No, I'm just talking about revisiting your own script, revisiting your own internal dialogue, evaluating it, analyzing it with both eyes from the outside, looking at yourself as if you were analyzing somebody else's life, and ask yourself the question, is that opinion validated? What makes you any less capable of becoming an astrophysicist and becoming a math whiz? What's stopping you? Well, it's the belief that I'm an artist, not a mathematician. So when tax time comes around, you go into a state of paranoia. This is all a fictional script that we write for ourselves. It's an internal dialogue that is very often there for reasons we've never even stopped to question. And what I want you to know, that if you have an internal dialogue that says, I'm stupid, I'm fat, social problems, I have a shitty personality, I'm ugly, I'm not charming, I'll never have any talent, I was always the last person in my class, all of that stuff is fiction. Nothing is stopping you from just grabbing a pen, opening up a book, and starting a drawing. and just draw until you get better. Nothing stopping you from analyzing your own artwork from the outside and saying, my perspective sucks. I'm going to go talk to this artist and I need their help. Oh, I want to improve my environment art. Let's go give Tyler Edlin a call. Ah, my fundamentals are really weak. Let's go give Antonio Stappaerts a call. Nothing's stopping you. Oh, I suck with money. I'm really financially dumb as a rake. I have no idea how to succeed in social media. Give Kelsey Rodriguez a call. These are people that can help you out. But you are not dumb. You are not weak. You're not the black sheep in your class who sucked when everybody else succeeded. I believed that for so many years. Until I stopped and asked myself, why was I pursuing that career in the first place? Why? Because all my peers were doing it, and society was telling me that if you want to consider yourself a success in art as a professional, you need to get a job at that studio. And I worked tooth and nail to get a job in that studio, and in most cases, I hated the experience, and I didn't do particularly well. So how did I respond to that failure? I felt like a failure. I felt like I couldn't fit in. I felt I wasn't good enough. I felt like I was the black sheep. I felt like everybody else is great, but I suck ass. And it took me decades for me to stop and realize, hey, wait a minute. Why am I chasing after that goal in the first place? Is this something I really truly want? And I revisited my own value system. I revisited my own passions, my own interests, and I said, if I really think about it, if I really think about myself and what I've done my whole life and those things that I do when nobody's watching, I would be doing something very, very different. And so I did. I started a school. I changed my attitude towards my YouTube channel. I changed my attitude towards my art. What art I considered beautiful. What art I felt was a true expression of myself. What influences I brought into my life. And my life turned around. It was an incredible uphill battle trying to fit into the popular kids club when being a popular kid was always the thing I didn't want to be. But it was always effortless to be myself. And I think for so many artists out there, that's probably the case for yourself too. I know so many artists that try so hard to fit in somewhere. And whether they succeed at that or fail, have they really stopped for 2 seconds to ask themselves whether or not that's really where they want to be in the first place? And furthermore, why do I feel this way about myself? Why am I pursuing these things? And for you as an artist, for you as an individual, for you when it comes to your life in general, your relationships, your family dynamics, your professional pursuits, eventually you need to come to terms with yourself. You need to look in the mirror and see yourself and understand who you are and take all of that influence and filter it through the filter of you so you can decide ultimately where you go moving forward. And that is the perfect segue into my last point. Failure. What is your relationship with failure? And furthermore, why do you have that relationship with it? This ties right into that internal versus external dialogue conversation. And it also, quite happily, ties in perfectly with what I've been playing live on my channel for the last few weeks. Shadow of the Erdtree, Elden Ring. And one of the things that I have grown very tired of, and I know many die-hard Souls fans can relate to what I'm going to say, I am so sick and tired of people talking about how hard the game is. And furthermore, one of the things that triggered a lot of die-hard Souls fans is the poor score that Shadow of the Erdtree received on Steam for the fact that it was so unfairly difficult. And all of these people got so butthurt about that and gave it a downvote because it's just unreasonably difficult. And this is the same thing that Souls players hear, serious Souls players hear time and time again. Oh my God, it's so hard. Oh my God, it's so hard. And the reason why that bothers me so much is because by focusing on the difficulty and having the wrong attitude about difficulty and prioritizing difficulty as the main feature of the game, you are overlooking everything else. The masterpiece that is the Souls series, any Miyazaki From Software game, the beauty, the artistry, the music, the vocals, the animation, the design, everything is just an utter masterpiece. I mean, I'm an artist myself. I'm a visual artist. And if you've been watching my live streams, I very often just take a moment to stop and stare at some beautiful visual moment. But I've also been binging on these videos where this I can't remember what his name is. He's a professional opera singer who reacts to the musical scores in Elden Ring. And I was at the gym this morning listening to him, and he was reacting to different boss fights. And from a musical perspective, from his operatic perspective, he was trying to analyze the emotional intention, what was being communicated through that music, through these absolutely stunning musical scores. And I'm at the gym. I'm surrounded by people. And this music would kick in, and I am desperately trying to fight back tears of beauty, tears of emotional weight, tears of awe. Just the music, the vocals, the powerful masculine vocals, the rhythms of battle. I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, this is so beautiful. I'm trying not to start bawling my eyes crying in front of a bunch of strangers at the gym. Everything about that is just emotionally, overwhelmingly beautiful. But yeah, it's also fucking hard. I get it. Get over it. Why are people downvoting difficulty? In spite of all of that mastery. Why are they doing that? And why am I getting so triggered about it? Well, I'm obviously deeply enamored by the Souls series, and Shadow of the Erdtree is no exception to that. But it's because people who complain about the difficulty of a Souls game don't get the point of difficulty. And I would say that the same thing applies to art in general. The difficulty isn't meant to just kick your ass. The difficulty isn't just meant to make you feel weak and powerless and frustrated. It's not just meant to keep you engaged with anger. That's not the point of the difficulty. The difficulty is the point. The difficulty is the fact that success and achievement in life is a product of overcoming challenge. And when Mother Nature hands you a challenge with no solution in sight, when life hands you hardship, pain, suffering, unfairness, injustice, and doesn't give a shit how you feel about that, you find yourself in a do or die situation. And it's through that challenge, it's through that unforgiving difficulty that you have to find your own resolve. You have to discover your own inner strength to overcome that challenge, that you truly discover who you are. So when you walk out of the other end of that challenge victorious, no matter how many hundreds of times it takes you to overcome that challenge, you walk out the other end a greater version of yourself. In episode 6 of my live stream, I go up against the dragon Baal. And if you were there to watch that episode, I spent the entire 3-hour episode pretty much trying to take him down. I lost count of how many times I tried to beat him, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 times, if not more. I'm not sure. I wasn't really counting. Many. I tried out different weapons. I tried different strategies. I tried different summons. I stayed back and I studied the fight. I had people saying, summon Igor, not knowing what they were talking about. And then I discovered after the 15th attempt that I could summon Igor, and that helped to tip the scales in my favor. But that whole episode was me failing over and over and over and over and over again. And nobody was bothered by that. I didn't see people start leaving and getting fed up with me and calling me names and telling me to get good. No. People stuck around, encouraged me, were supportive of me, cracked jokes, offered suggestions. People were along for the ride, watching me overcome this challenge. And I got mad. I got frustrated. I smacked my leg a couple of times and groaned when I did something stupid, or I got carried away with DPSing him and I didn't notice this big fiery pit of lava forming underneath my feet and blowing me up. I learned through experience. Those failures were not the end. Those failures were what were teaching me how to succeed. And towards the end of that episode, I did succeed. And I had a whole cheering crew of people going, "You did it!" And I was extremely excited that I overcame that challenge. It was it was an epic, gorgeous, intense fight. And I was victorious, eventually. And that's the whole point. This is what Souls teaches us. This is what life teaches you. This is what a really hard art career teaches you. It's hard. The things you care about are hard. And if you care enough to be there in the first place, if you find yourself in a situation where you're getting so frustrated with your art and you're just trying to draw and you suck ass and frickin' God, and you're snapping your pen in half and flipping over your desk and tearing your hair out and sweating and cursing and all that kind of shit, you got to stop and ask yourself the question, why am I putting myself through this pain in the first place? Why am I getting so emotionally fired up about this in the first place? Well, it's for the same reason why I kept fighting Bale 600 times. Because it mattered to me. Because your art career matters to you. Because you have a relationship with your art career. And I've been working professionally for 25 years now. And art still kicks my ass. I've never once walked into a painting thinking to myself, this one's going to kick ass. I'm going to nail this one. I always walk into a painting the same way I feel walking into that Bale fight. I'm going to walk through that fog gate and I don't know what the fuck is going to hit me in the face. We're going to see. But I've learned through experience to embrace that challenge, to invite that challenge, to be excited by that challenge, because that challenge is what makes me feel that sense of growth and accomplishment. That challenge is my brain's and body's way of saying, hey, Adam, you're finding growth through this, so push through it. Something really cool the other day. I was watching an episode of Andrew Huberman. Not that I binge on him too much, because I do find he's a little bit too obsessive with his health. I do like to find that life balance and stuff, so I don't preach his stuff all the time. But there was one thing he was talking about in an episode that I found really, really interesting. He was talking about cold plunging, dipping yourself into really, really cold water. And as a neuroscientist, one of the things that he found particularly fascinating from an actual physical neurological perspective is that growth patterns are detected in the brain when the brain is faced with a challenge. The very act of knowingly facing a challenge and doing it anyways actually helps to rewire the brain in a positive way. You can see these physical changes when scanning the brain. Therefore, what he's describing is the benefit from the cold plunge is the knowledge that it's hard. Isn't that interesting? And it's the knowledge that it's hard. It's the knowledge that, oh my God, this is going to suck. And you do it anyways. That your brain reacts to this experience in a positive way and grows as a result of it. Isn't that interesting? And what that did was it changed the way I would do a cold plunge. Not though I do it with ice cold water. I find that just ridiculously painful. But, just filling a bath with tap cold water and just plunging myself in or jumping into a pool. I don't dip myself slowly into it and allow my body to adapt to that cold. No, I just go right in. Because I know it's that overcoming that physical challenge, that emotional challenge, that comfort challenge that derives this benefit. And art is the same way. It's gonna be hard, but that's the fucking point. When you walk into a painting with this feeling of doubt, with this feeling of not being grounded, not having your feet on the ground, being insecure about your skills, not knowing what the hell's color harmony and how the hell do I achieve it? Why do my values suck so much? Why do my shapes suck so much? Oh my God, I'm 6 hours into this painting and I realized I made a fundamental boo-boo with the composition and now I have to start the whole goddamn thing over again, is the exact equivalent of going up against that same boss 600 times and dying earlier and earlier and earlier each time until you stop and you say, all right, asshole, stop and think for 2 seconds. Stop banging your head against the wall and getting your ass handed to you. This game is not going to let you brute force this boss. You're going to have to get smart. One of my favorite quotes from You Died, the book by Jason Killingsworth and Keza MacDonald, is, all the gravestones belong to heroes. So the game teaches you to be smart. Fight smart, not hard. And that same thing applies to your artistic career. Failure is the fucking point. Failure hurts. Failure's hard. Failure kicks you in the ego over and over and over again. Failure makes you feel like the more work you put in, the worse you get. Unless you change your attitude about failure. Yes, Souls games are hard. Yes, an art career is hard. That's the point. And it's in overcoming that challenge. It's in volunteering to jump into that cold water, volunteering to step through that fog gate, volunteering to pursue an artistic challenge in the first place that's making you better at art. Think about that for a second. And with that said, I love you all with all my heart and happy painting. Take care.